I earned and saved my first over 100,000 US dollars in 1 year back in November 2022. And I am happy to share with you how I did this because I hope this is something that can inspire you or help you in some way. I earned well over $100,000 in 1 year, and I lived far below my means, and I used geo arbitrage and the foreign earned income exclusion to my advantage to lower my cost of living. And that, my loves, is how I did it. So let's get into the details. How I achieved this is actually quite simple. I'm not saying it's easy, but I am saying it is simple, and this is something that can possibly help you in your life in some way, this video. So earn over 100,000 US dollars and spend far less than that. That is the gist of everything. But I am sure you're wondering, how did you make that much money and how did you spend so little? So how I earned my first over 100,000 US dollars in 1 year, it was by actually launching a membership online. So if you don't know, I have a membership that is a 10-year content catalog. It's my ultimate content catalog archive vault of 10 years of content, and it is honestly incredible. I've never seen anybody else do it. I would say that I'm in like a blue ocean, meaning nobody else is really doing it, or if they are, I haven't heard of them because there's so few people doing exactly what I do. And that puts me in a really advantageous position as an entrepreneur. Anyway, so that is how I earned it. And that money came in month after month, year after year, and it continues to do so today. That's how great my product is, and I highly recommend it if it's something you're interested in. You'll find it linked in the description down below, and it's also linked on my website as well. Yes, so we were talking about the high income. So that is how I made my money. Very simple. I'm not saying it's easy, but I am saying it is simple. So I'm not saying that you have to make your money this way either, but I'm just letting you know how I did it. So we got the income portion down. Check. Now let's talk about the expenses, because this is also equally important in my opinion, because think of your cash flowing into your bank accounts as like cash that's filling up your treasure chest. Well, if you have holes in your treasure chest and there are like hands going into the holes of the treasure chest where you have all your money, and they're like grasping money out of your treasure chest because you have holes in them, they could take all of your money if you're not careful, if you don't try to plug up those holes, if you don't fortify or make your treasure chest really strong. And ultimately, I really believe that your spending habits are equally important as your earning habits, because even if you're making millions a year, if you're spending more than you're earning, then you're in debt, you know? So don't do that. Make sure that you do what I do, which is to live below your means at the very least. I prefer to live far below my means because I always think it's good to have margin, that extra cushion, because you never know what can happen in life. It's good to be prepared, at least to some extent, for the surprises that life can bring. And sometimes it's good surprises, and sometimes not so great. But if you have a cushion, you are at least going to be able to absorb the shock better than those who do not. Now that we have discussed the income, let's go back to the expenses. So when it comes to my cost of living, me living far below my means, and all of that, how I was able to spend so little was, yes, I was disciplined with my money, of course, but there are people who are disciplined with their money who have a higher cost of living than I do. And this is because you, for those of you who resonate with what I'm saying about you not being able to save much, even though you are disciplined with your money, because I know a lot of people are. The difference between you and me is that I live abroad. So not only do I earn my money in the world's reserve currency, which is currently the US dollar, It is a powerful currency to earn money in, but I also spend it in a weaker currency, and I also live in a country that is poorer than the United States from a financial standpoint. Just strictly talking financials here, guys, because I love this country. It is rich with history, culture, wonderful people, rich in other ways, but we're just strictly talking about the finances, okay? And most countries are poor compared to the US, okay? If you actually look at the finances of many countries, we're really, really, really powerful in the fact that our currency is the world's reserve currency, and also we just earn a lot, and it's like expensive to live in the US compared to most other countries. Not all countries, but most other countries, yes. At least if you live in a high cost city like Los Angeles, which is where I was born and raised. So I am Armenian American. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, California, but I'm ethnically Armenian. I'm a dual citizen of both the US and Armenia, and I live abroad in a third country that I do not name for privacy and security purposes. But I do have geo arbitrage. Basically means geo arbitrage is when the cost of living in the country that you move to is far lower than where you come from. When you spend in a currency that is weaker than the currency that you earn in. So I think that most people will be able to understand that Los Angeles is one of the most expensive cities in the world to live in. And basically if you move anywhere else, well, not anywhere else, but almost most places, like, you know, most places that you move to that is not Los Angeles, the cost of living will be lower. I think most people can understand this concept. Everything just costs less, or a lot of things like big things like housing costs less, for example. And when it comes to the currency, this is something that might be a little bit more difficult for people to understand. So I just want to make it as simple as possible for you to understand. So imagine the US dollar as an apple, okay? And I'm like, to this country, I'm like, hello, do you want my US apple? And then they say to me, yes, I will give you 10 of our apples from our local apple farm for your US apple, because people prefer your US apple because it is the world's favorite and most secure apple to eat. Okay? Because there's a lot of stability associated with your US apple. But that is basically, in a nutshell, what it is. It's like one, at least my understanding of it, $1 US is worth multiple of the local currency where I live. And so me earning in US dollars and spending in the local currency is a great value for me, because I get multiple apples for my one US apple. And because people want my US apple, it is in demand, okay? So I'm sure our reputation in some ways fluctuates in different places, but generally we have like a good reputation abroad financially as Americans. When it comes to, it's good enough for it to be the reserve currency and for us to be able to exchange 1 unit of our US dollar for a multiple of another currency. I'm not saying that this applies to every country, but where I live, this is the case. They love our US dollar. You know, just be respectful, of course, when you visit other countries, you guys. Don't go around being rude, okay, and entitled. I think this is just common kindness and compassion and humility that we all ought to have. But I think in general, Americans that travel, or those of us who move abroad, I think we are pretty good because we get exposed to different cultures over time, and then it helps us become better people, even if we weren't the best when, you know, we moved abroad. At least in my case, I feel like I've grown a lot as I continue to live abroad. Every year that I live here, that I live abroad outside of the US, I really believe I become a better person, because I have to look at life from their perspective and prioritize their way of being, their way of life, their way of thinking, their language, their culture, and become a part of it. And so, anyway, just my little spiel. But yeah, so the reality of the finances still rings true today. And basically, when it comes to the expenses, the geo arbitrage, there's one more thing when it comes to the expenses that I think people should talk about a lot more when it comes to living abroad, and that is taxes. So, just to make this really quick and simple, because I can make a whole video about this, I meet the requirements to be able to lower my taxes that I pay to the US government. We as Americans are a part of a taxation system that is citizenship based. Not every country is like this, but ours is. No matter where we live in the world, we need to file a tax return. Again, guys, I'm not a financial advisor, I'm not an accountant, I'm not this, I'm not that. I'm just telling you what I know, how my accountants have explained this to me. And so because as Americans we are part of a citizenship based taxation system, we need to file a US tax return every year and pay our taxes. However, those of you from states that are not like California, I'm talking to those of you who are from like red states, or just states where it's not so like socialist leaning when it comes to at least the tax aspect of the US, I still have to pay taxes, even though I still meet all the requirements to be able to lower my taxes through the foreign earned income exclusion. And again, I meet all of the requirements as someone who is domiciled abroad, and the way I make my money and all of this, I earn my money and on my earned income. As someone who is domiciled abroad, I am able to use the foreign earned income exclusion to lower my tax burden, and so I pay less in taxes. Do I still pay taxes? Yes, I do. I am paying federal taxes and like I think there's like self-employment taxes, social security, but I still pay taxes, and I have to pay at least a little bit over 15% in taxes. That is the least amount that I am supposed to pay. And again, how I get taxed depends on how I make my money. And so the majority of the money I make is through earned income. And yeah, so the foreign earned income exclusion helps me lower my tax burden. Do I still pay taxes? Yes. But again, I just want to mention, didn't we have like this revolution when back in the colonial days before the US was like the US? They like had this whole quarrel with England about taxation without representation. But I'm in that position right now. I cannot vote unless if I want to be taxed more than double what I'm being taxed now. So I am paying my taxes and not able to vote. However, I am okay with this because I don't live in the US. And yes, it sucks that I can't vote and can't have a say in the decisions that the US makes, at least on a federal level, because I am paying my federal taxes. I'm still grateful that I even have this opportunity. Guys, like if you really think about the big picture of things, I still have it pretty good. I still benefit from everything positive that the US has to offer. And so I like a handshake with the US government. This is a good compromise. So I am happy to pay my taxes, and as long as they are relatively reasonable, and I still get to enjoy the privileges that come with being an American, especially one that is living abroad, studying abroad, and traveling and doing everything. And I'm still able to return to the US whenever I want and visit my family, spend a little time there, and yeah, so it's good stuff, guys. I'm very happy with it. So anyway, now that you know this is the gist of the video. This is the details. This is the summary of how I do all this. Let me know if you want to know more about how I do my taxes abroad and how I found my accountant, how to, set up all of this, because I just want to help you, and I have been burned before. I made a $8,000 mistake in the process of trying to find a good US based company made by Americans for those of us who live abroad or travel abroad for long periods of time, like our tax situation and how to do our taxes and everything. Just like let me know if you want help on that, because it was a really tough thing for me back in the day. And like I said, I got burned the first time I tried to hire a company to help me with my taxes, because I didn't know what I was doing. This was my first time. There's nobody who like teaches you these things, at least not publicly, that it came from my position, where they're from a sticky state. They're from a state like California, where you still have to pay all of these taxes. And yeah, but I hope that this gave you like a little hope. And again, if you need a recommendation, I'm happy to give it to you. Just let me know. I could make a separate video. I think that would be better. I make a separate video just dedicated to this, and then like give you my takeaways and my lessons and like my best practices and the mistakes you should avoid. And yeah, so to summarize everything of how I earned and saved my first over $100,000 in 1 year. I earned well over $100,000 in 1 year, and I lived far below my means, and I used geo arbitrage and the foreign earned income exclusion to my advantage to lower my cost of living. And that, my loves, is how I did it. And I did it in 1 year. And yeah, so I hope this helps you, and I will see you on my next video. And before I head out, I want to remind you to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Click the bell notification button, turn on all notifications for my YouTube channel, and turn on all notifications on your YouTube app so you do not miss my future videos. And I will see you on my next